Hit any key. You got it. All right. Good evening, everybody. Today is June 1st, 2026. I think it's 6:03 now. I'm going to call the order for the Winthrop Town Council meeting. If we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's take a step back to do a roll call. All council members are here, but except Shannon, and I know she's texted me and a few others. She's on her way. She's not coming through the door right now, so we will see her shortly. We're going to start off with public comment. So if you have a public comment, please come to the podium. So I know somebody's slowly making their way up here. Yep.
Sandy Steele. I'm a taxpayer here in town. And at the last Charter Commission meeting, there were some things said about myself and my family. And it was brought up again at the last council meeting, but I feel like I need to represent my family as well. So I wrote this, so I will be short and sweet, so I will make everybody happy. Serving on a council or a committee is more than holding a title, is a commitment to the people and the future of the community. Civic duty is stepping forward, not for personal gain, but to listen and serve and to help make thoughtful decisions that benefit everyone. It requires integrity, respect, accountability, and the willingness to work together even when opinions differ. Those who choose to serve carry that responsibility of protecting the public's trust, encouraging open dialogue, and ensuring that every voice in the community matters. True public service is built on dedication, fairness, and the understanding that strong communities are created when people are willing to give their time and energy for the greater good. When responsibility of public service is abused, the damage reaches far beyond a single meeting or decision. Abuse of power erodes trust, divides communities, and weakens the very purpose of civic leadership. Positions on the council and the committees are meant to serve the public fairly and transparently, not to advance personal agendas, favor family or friends, or silence opposing voices or intimidate others. Leaders who place themselves above that accountability forget that public office is a privilege, not an entitlement. The members on the council and the committees are voted in by the taxpayers of this town. Healthy communication depends on honesty, ethical conduct, and the respect for the people whom they represent. When these principles are ignored, it becomes the duty of the taxpayer to speak up and demand transparency. This brings me to the last Charter Commission meeting. During that meeting, 2 members chose to use their time at the end of the meeting to speak negatively about the town manager and to make false accusations regarding myself, my husband, and my son. I would like to publicly address a few of these statements tonight. First, it was claimed that we were responsible for ousting the former town manager. That statement is simply false. The former town manager, along with the former council chair at that time, resigned after information obtained through FOIA for a FOIA request represents that they both brought unethical conduct, that FOIA represented brought the unethical conduct to light regarding actions taken while serving the positions of public trust. Second, it became apparent, meaning I was directly told by another commission charter member, that certain charter commission members were attempting to use the commission as a vehicle to undermine and remove the current town manager simply because they personally disliked him. Public office should never be used to advance personal agendas or political grudges. Third, 4 elected charter committee members publicly accused my husband and son of nepotism. I would remind everyone that both men were elected by the taxpayers of this community with full public knowledge that they were related. Despite that fact, the voters overwhelmingly chose to elect them and put them in office. That is not nepotism. A true example of nepotism would be an elected official participating in a vote that directly benefits a relative financially, such as approving a raise for a committee member they are related to while fully aware of the relationship. That is the very definition of nepotism, and that did happen here in our community. In closing, I am deeply troubled that this type of conduct continues even after the Holden Mooring debacle that our town endured. One would hope that lessons would have been learned from those events, but unfortunately, that does not appear to be the case. I will leave you with this. It is our civic duty to become involved in town matters so we can help make Winthrop a stronger, more transparent, and more beautiful community than it already is. As election season approaches once again, I encourage everyone to pay close attention to the individuals we elect that hold public officials that we elect and to hold those public officials accountable for their actions. To the council and committee members whom I am directly addressing tonight, and you know who you are, I ask that you reflect on the words shared here tonight and moving forward, commit yourselves to doing what is right while serving in our public office. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other comment in the audience or online? But he's got to help me with online.
Yeah, and if someone online wants to make a comment at any point this evening, if you will, just raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
Not seeing any? Okay, good. All right, let's move on. Next is a recognition of Public Works employee Connie Carpenter for earning Maine Department of Transportation's Road Scholar Certification. Kevin's going to come up and make a presentation. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you all. I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you about an employee that we have here in the town. Her name is Connie Carpenter. She's our equipment operator, and she recently passed all the certifications to get a road scholar. This is a certification done through the Maine Local Road Center that in the 492 towns and municipalities in the state of Maine, there are less than 250 people that have this certification. So it's a big accomplishment, and I'd like to get her to step up here. I know she hates the limelight, but I'd like her to come up and present her with this award. Connie, I've known you for a long time. We've worked together for a few years now, and I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna stand here and take the photo.
Thank you, Connie. Thanks for your hard work.
Yes, thank you.
Quick,
Go ahead, Aaron.
Kevin, can I make a quick comment?
Hold on.
I'll get Andy.
Is
Aaron wants to go first here. Go ahead.
Kevin, are you the only female operator for heavy equipment in town? Okay. I've had probably like no less than 4 people comment to me. They like watching you in town when you're operating it with how smoothly and efficiently you operate it. Just letting you know that just literally people have just come up to me off the street and said that. So there you go.
Andy?
So a little while back, I shouldn't admit this in public, but I made an extremely dumb mistake and tossed my notebook in the trash bin at the dump and transfer station. And on the way out, I asked that the folks keep an eye and I would be back. And when I got back, most of the contents of the trash bin had been backhoed out and they were all sorting through it, trying to help me out. And Connie gets a straight up thanks for that. You went above and beyond.
So, Mr. Chair, we also have one other recognition tonight that's not on the agenda, but Chief Moretto would like to recognize the accomplishments of one of our paramedics, Don Flanagan.
Council, I'd like to thank you again for allowing me this time tonight to recognize one of our employees. A couple council meetings ago, we recognized 3 of our employees who had the ability to take care of a woman who was in labor and help deliver that child. And then also for a couple of them, paramedic Don Flanagan, also to be one of the lead medics in this successful resuscitation of a person that was in cardiac arrest. And so, like I said before, we really enjoy our job. We like doing what we do. We've dedicated our whole lives to that. And through the normal calls, just the normal everyday calls to the really trying hard calls and the really tragic ones, every now and then we do get the opportunity to be on a call that really makes us go, wow, this is what we do. One of the main reasons that we do our job. This is why we're here and why we dedicate it to. So at this time, I'd like to call up paramedic Don Flanagan, and we will start the first one with the award for being one of the lead medics on helping to deliver a baby and to receive his pre-hospital stork award. And I'd like to be able to read that letter again from Maine EMS. In 1904, Bessie Anderson Stanley wrote, "To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded." In these words, you probably have to go, huh? In these words, Maine EMS and the Maine EMS for Children program would like to recognize the high quality of patient care and exemplary service during a recent EMS response. On March 6, 2026, at approximately 0437, Winthrop Ambulance Service responded to a woman in active labor. During the course of this EMS response, the crew successfully delivered a newborn baby boy, providing continued EMS care until arrival of the patient's midwife. The care provided represents all the ideals of emergency medical service professionals. In recognition of this Maine EMS award, a stork pin to remember your efforts and success. Thank you for your efforts and dedication to improving the health of children throughout the state of Maine. Sincerely, Mark Minkler, Program Manager, EMS for Children, Maine Emergency Medical Services. So here's your award and your stork pin. And the next one is the Phoenix Award. Winthrop Ambulance Service is honored to present Maine EMS Phoenix Award to paramedic Don Flanagan in recognition of his outstanding performance during the resuscitation of a patient who suffered an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Through his precise clinical execution, sound judgment, and steadfast professionalism, Don contributed directly to the restoration of spontaneous circulation and the patient's return to neurologically intact life. His actions reflect the highest standards of emergency medical care and embody the core mission and values of Maine EMS and our service.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I just wanted to reiterate that our town is very lucky and fortunate to have Don as a paramedic. When I started as an EMT in 2005 in Lewiston, he was one of my mentors. And I certainly would not have progressed in medicine had I not had individuals like him teaching me. So thanks, Don.
And I would add that the whole town of Winthrop owes a debt of gratitude to Don Flanagan because he helped convince me to hire Chief Moretto, who's been an excellent ambulance chief as well. And interestingly, so Don was Chief Moretto's boss when they both worked for Auburn Fire. So now the tables have been turned.
Congratulations. Yeah, thank you. You good? Right. Thank you, guys. All right, just going to open up items 100, consideration of transient seller permit applications for, I hope I say this right, is it K-Ban Filipino Foods? Combine, thank you. Sorry to butcher it. That's okay. Would you want to come up to the podium in case anybody has any questions? That'd be great. Thank you. I think this is renewal. Yeah, I remember it from last year. Any questions? Anybody else has any questions for the folks?
When you're ready.
Yep, we're ready to, I'm entertain a motion. Thank you.
To approve transient sale permit by Kebian Philippine Foods.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? All are in favor. Thank you. Appreciate it coming in.
You didn't even have to make a speech.
You are, sir. Thank you. Items 101, discussion and consideration of bid responses to request for proposals for Bailey Library drainage mitigation.
So the owner and operator of Alden Longfellow's Landscaping and Excavation texted me earlier and he said that he may or may not be here. He's supposed to text me at 4. I haven't heard from him, so maybe we can just continue on the agenda, and if he shows up.
Let's leave it at that, and then towards the end of the meeting. Thank you. Let's move on to items 102, discussion with Assessor Rob Plessy on reevaluations.
Good evening, all. Rob Duplessis, been the assessor here for the last 10 years. And we've had conversations. I think we have a contract now for a revaluation. So I wanted to talk to you guys about what to see coming up in the next handful of months. The first step of this process is going to be actually doing our field reviews. My crew is going to go out with the records we have at hand and visit every property. Record verification. We're dealing with a live database here. We're just making sure that everything we have in our assessing records is accounted for on the face of the earth. So we'll be going door to door. While we're out in the field, we want to be as conspicuous as possible. We will have lanyard IDs from the town, letter of introduction on the back of our clipboard. Our cars will have magnetic signs that will say Town Assessor's Office. So we want to put people at ease. We will be going visiting people cold call. But if somebody wants us to come back later, if it's not a good time for them, we will certainly accommodate that. We'll have 4 or 5 of my guys out there doing that work, and we'll start on the lakes. We'll get the summer people that'll be up here, and we'll probably be visiting people probably through September. And we'll leave information with the town, with the police department about my guys, the phone numbers, description of the cars, things like that. So if anybody calls. As the council wants periodic updates, we certainly will come back and explain to you, where we're at, what we're finding. So that's going to be the biggest part of this process that's going to impact, the residents, visiting everybody. And then after that is more of some in-house work. Because we're getting rid of our Vision software. Right now we use Vision for calculating our assessments and Trio for our tax billing. Vision is going away and we're using Trio for everything. So there'll be a lot of data entry that we'll do either in the office or offsite at our office, getting that done. But the real important component about this is when we start doing our sales analysis, we're going to look at every piece of property in town that's sold in the last 3 years, arm's length sales, willing seller, willing buyer through a broker sales. And from those sales, we're going to start creating a new valuation method for land and buildings. We will go out roadside, not to the property, but just roadside, again, reviewing what my field crew has found. And from that review, start setting up new schedules for land, new schedules for buildings based on those sales. And I will continue to check them until I'm at a point where our assessments are mirroring what things are selling for. Once that's set, we then go out and start applying these established values to everybody across town. We're shooting for 100% of market value of our tax levy date of April 1st of 2027. That'll be throughout the winter. We'll do that. We'll look at all the sales all the way up until April 1st of 2027 to fine tune these new schedules. Standard. But the biggest thing that we do that's different than other reval companies, because we serve as assessors and revaluation companies, is at the end of the project, we will send a letter out to every taxpayer for every property they own. On that letter, not just their new valuation based on current market, but we'll sit down with the town and have a budget. So we'll give them a new valuation, a new mill rate estimate, either based on the current year we're in, or if we have a good budget set in time for next year, we'll actually have the actual budget. So we'll be giving them a mill rate that would be very accurate. And that's the biggest key, because they'll see a new value, which will obviously be higher than it is now, but it's going to be tied with a tax. Unlike you've read some other towns around the area have had to have the revaluation and told people what the value was, but didn't tell them what the impact was tax-wise. And to me, that's a very, very big mistake, because a layman taxpayer is just going to take the only other thing they know and the mill rate that currently exists and apply that to their new value, and it causes a lot of worry, distrust, and we avoid all of that by having a tax on our notices that will be tied to the actual budget. We will have hearings here in the office, one-on-one with everybody that wants to talk to us before the tax commitment is done. That way we can go through all the small questions people have, if we have a listing error or something we didn't realize about the house. And any opportunity for them to talk about something larger than that. We explain the valuation method, the sales that we use, and if there's something about their property or their neighborhood that they think we should consider again, that's the time to do it. So we clean most of that up. And then we set our regular commitment, the normal appeal process that every taxpayer gets every year is still there. Within the first 6 months of receiving their tax bill, they can file a formal grievance. We try to get all that more easy questions out of the way first, because we don't want to issue that many abatements. So this process we've done for years and years, and I think it works out really well, just to give people as much information as possible. Because the last time this was done, as you probably read from what I sent you, was back in 2008. So our values are very low. Right now, our certified ratio, which is the ratio of the difference between our local assessed values currently and the most recent sales, we declare that to state to be, we're at 59% of market value. The minimum assessing standard that the state says we must maintain is 70. So we are failing. The biggest thing is that means that everybody's homestead exemption that currently sits at up to $25,000, because we're only at 59%, we can only give $14,750 worth of homestead relief. That's the way the statute's written in regards to the homestead. So that's one of the bigger things. Other than that, I really have no prediction of what it's going to mean for tax burden changes to anybody if possible. It's been since 2008. The market dipped, was very flat for years. And then when COVID did what it did to the real estate market, it hit all classes of the property the same. Unlike other years where I would see waterfront outpace off water considerably, really hasn't seen that. It may help in any sort of tax shift that we would see, but we won't know that until the end. But the idea is resetting the assessments based on now current market, and it's been almost 20 years, and it's certainly due.
Thank you. I guess Linda has a question. Get ready.
Yes.
So. The houses have not gone down, so depending on what it is, it's.
But, I think.
It's going to be incumbent upon us to deal with the mill rate and everything else.
Right, if we had the same exact budget, right, and everybody went up 40%, everybody's gonna actually pay the exact same amount in taxes, correct?
In a perfect world, that would
In
be
a
the
perfect
case,
world,
right?
yeah. The dollar amount, their home's gonna be valued more, but dollar amount,
I know. I get it.
I gotta come.
Yeah, hold on, Andy's got,
Yeah.
then I'll go Zach, you, and then here.
This is a question I always kind of wondered about. But when you appraise a home, I assume that at the time you do that, you have the existing tax records in hand.
Yes.
Okay. And so if you find what might be assumed to be a code or an addition, say, that doesn't have a permit, are you obligated to report that, or do you just keep on going? Or what are you supposed to do there?
It's hard. We don't report every time we find something new. We will assume that somewhere along the line, it broke down in the chain of command from the permit to us not having it on our record. What we do, if something's very egregious, something's close to the water, obviously you can't build something that close to the water, or really close to a neighbor's property line. We have a good communication with Mark, and I'd sit down and informally say to Mark, we were down here, we discovered a few things that it's not on our record. Should there be? But it isn't every change. We're going to assume that the taxpayer did what they were supposed to do in getting the proper permits.
Thank you very much.
Zach?
Yeah. First off, thank you for coming up. I know this is quite a hot topic right now in town. So you explained it. Can you just remind me? So you're taking you're going to see all the properties sold first, going back to what date, or is that just
We'll go back 3 years.
3 years? Okay, so that's the number. Okay,
Right.
and then like Roy was saying, I guess so we're 3 years to now. And you think, in your kind of professional opinion, that the market's kind of inflated more linearly and rather than like the waterfront versus that, which I would agree with. So
The towns that I work in, the
Yeah.
evaluations that we've performed during COVID and since, they've been holding pretty steady. The increases we've seen have been pretty much across the board,
yeah,
which is, like I said, it helps in any sort of tax shift.
yeah, it's a tax
And
burden.
that's something
yeah.
that's been very, like, I'm going to bring up probably this a couple times. We just finished this in the town of Wayne last year. And we were, the value almost doubled for the entire town value on the building. And that became our benchmark. We saw that the total valuation base doubled from one year to the other. And any individual property that over doubled, they could see a shift in tax burden, regardless of the reason why they changed. Could be missing things, or this neighborhood was undervalued before, or was a lesser desirable neighborhood before, now becomes something more desirable, things like that. But there really wasn't a big shift. The biggest challenge we had there was a significant tax increase. So we had a lot of people coming in questioning the fact that I think the town budget was up 11% from one year or the other.
Yeah, so in Wayne, you didn't see like a waterfront property go from like, 50% and another farmhouse go 20. Okay, good.
When we get to this 59%, we have a report from the state every year that tells us our ratio, and it breaks it down into category. And we have enough sales in this town that we'd have commercial, waterfront, residential, all different ratios. And then they do a combined. The ratio for each individual study were within 5% of each other, which tells me there's not a systematic undervaluing of a class of property, which again, the way to minimize any sort of shift is really what our goal here. But it lies where it lies.
No, that makes sense to me, because that's the market. I had to buy a house in this market, so it was like everywhere was going up. It didn't matter if I was trying to buy a trailer or whatever. And so that's kind of why you're the professional. So I appreciate it. That's all the questions I had.
Great. Roy?
Yeah, so I want to look at this one other way. And this is kind of how I see it. If there's a somebody, I've had this explained to me, and I just want you to verify it. So if for every dollar that somebody's property tax goes up, somebody else's property tax, I'm talking dollars owed or whatever, should go down, correct?
Yep. Correct.
If the valuation, if the budget stays
The
exactly
budget
the
stays
same.
That's right.
Okay, so there should be, for anybody that has property taxes going up, there should be somebody else that sees them go, their overall amount owed on the same budget go down.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to ask about, can you explain to me the interaction that you're going to be having with homeowners? Like, what, are you doing your assessment from like the road? Are you going onto private property?
When they go up and
Are you
knock on the
going
door.
in houses?
If they allow us to,
Okay, they don't have to allow.
we don't have to know.
No.
No.
And so you will be just walking on private property without any sort of notification, or what?
That's right. Yeah, no prior notification. That's why we try to be as conspicuous as possible. If we go down a subdivision, we're going to find somebody that's home first, do their property first, and then they'll be, the neighbors will talk and realize that we're going to be there. It's just standard assessing procedure that we do. Anytime we go to a property, if there's anybody that doesn't want us there, we would want to know ahead of time. If we have to make an appointment for somebody, we want to be as easy as possible to come up with a solution, but it's also a time management thing. The visits will be on site, go up, knock on the door. Nobody's there. We'll just look around the building to see if everything's there. We do have a measuring stick in our hand if something needs to be checked. But we're dealing with a live database here. So it isn't like we're creating new, we're just verifying. So it can be more cursory.
And Roy, just so you know, so those dynamics are at play every time an assessor goes out into the field, whether they're doing a revaluation or not, if someone builds a new deck or something, the assessor goes out and the property owner may or may not be very welcoming.
Get it?
Aaron?
Just a couple questions. One kind of process. When you go and you're doing the revaluations, as you're moving forward, are you updating the cards real time?
Not, that actually, honestly, that's weather dependent. We'll be out there measuring and visiting the property as much as we can when the weather's good. If we have a rain day, the crew will spend the day inside updating records.
Okay, I see what you
but-
mean. So tax
Yeah.
cards and stuff get updated if you have some downtime, not out in the field.
Right, so we update, we want to gather the data first, and there's a lot of new data we have to gather going from one system to the other. We're going to build those cost tables in Trio before we go out to the field, but they really have no bearing on value until after we do our sales analysis. And what I'm going to bring in I'll bring in a schedule that's at a level of the last revaluation we did, but we check that per square foot cost against what's actually selling in Winthrop, nowhere else. So there'll be that kind of a hodgepodge sort of thing. Anybody comes in and wants to see the official record is going to be the vision card, because we haven't committed the new cards yet. But we would absolutely share that information when anybody wants to look at it, because what we're looking for is accuracy. We feel like we can defend our values when we have our facts straight. Square footage, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, quality, condition. And that's all. We want to be as transparent as possible.
So if a resident goes on the assessor's portion of our site and puts in their property, that would just be dependent on whether or not you guys have.
No, none of that will be
April.
live for public consumption until we do our hearings.
Okay.
Because anything, it can change. We can have a number that we set, and at the hearing time, we realize that we may be 2% higher than we wanted to be, and we change all the assessments by 2%.
Okay.
Or
So you
something
do
like that.
have that, ability to make those
Nothing becomes
adjustments.
official until we do that commitment in August of 2027.
And if you don't get entry into the house, do you guys do any research on through realtors or like online research to try to get picture, or do you just say nope, we stick with where it was at and we're
Well, the baseline will be what's on the record right now, as far as the specific information. If on site we feel that's erroneous, we'll do that.
okay?
When we do that first data entry as weather allows, if it's someplace we really can't tell, and we will pull up, MLS and see what's listed on there for
Gotcha.
information.
Okay. And then lastly, commercial properties, is this something that this is incorporated as well?
Yep.
Is there a way for us to have the information going forward, like commercial, it's trending?
Yeah, part of the sales analysis, we'll have that information for you. Yeah.
Linda?
Let's have a schedule of where,
We haven't gotten that far yet. We will. Yeah, when we leave, we will let the town office know what part of town we're in, what map we're on, basically. Street to street's kind of hard, but we'll let them know. We'll basically, my guys will probably start in four different sections of town and work their way towards the middle. Tax bill increases?
realist valuations are going.
Can I speak to that, Rob? So I know there's a lot of trepidation about what happened last time and what that forebodes this time. And so I went back and did a little research, and I've included this in your background packets. But in 2007, our mill rate was 22.26. And that was the year that the revaluation occurred. That was implemented in 2008. And the property values went up 82%. And the mill rate dropped 44%. It went from 22.26 to 12.5. Now, the important number here in my mind is that the tax levy, the total amount of taxes collected, increased in 2008 by 2.5%. So it wasn't like some outrageous overall jump. Now, as Rob has mentioned, some properties felt that more than other properties did. But it was only a 2.5% increase. And in fact, in 2009, the town kept the same mill rate, reduced the budget by about $500,000, and reduced the budget by about $200,000 and reduced the tax levy by $500,000. Now, in those years, they did, it appears, tap into their fund balance because the fund balance went down. Whether that was for operational versus capital cost, I don't know. But it does just go to show you that a revaluation doesn't necessarily mean everyone's taxes all over town goes up and goes crazy. And in fact, I sent you an email late last week in which I just picked 24 properties at random and in all different sort of zones and looked at what the tax experience was for them. And the average tax bill, and this is, a small sample size, only 24 properties, but the average tax bill for those 24 properties went down by $3. Now, as Rob said, some paid more. As Roy said, some paid less, but the average experience among that small sample was negative $3. So, as I've said time and time again, the tax levy, the amount that we actually collect in taxes it's a one-to-one relationship to the budget. And you folks have full control and authority of the budget.
Thank you. Linda, anything else? Okay, thank you. I don't think it's any, I know some people in public, anybody else like to talk? Feel free to come on up to the podium, ask questions.
David Costa, resident on the lake. A couple questions for you. I get some of the stuff that you said. It sounds hopeful that the property values kind of overall seem to be trending together. So that would help not to have certain areas really spike. So I'm hopeful that that plays out. One of the questions I do have, though, is when you're looking for fair market value and you see properties that have sold with a house on it, how do you, because the property tax bills come where it shows the buildings as opposed to the land itself, how do you break out and determine the difference, what the value is for a house that's sold, the land versus the house itself? Do you want me to go through the whole thing? Okay. And then when you're looking, do you look at grids, neighborhoods, the whole town? Waterfront property is Cobussy Lake, Annabessacook, or a pond or a stream. When you're looking at waterfront, are they all the same, or are they different values based on the body of water they're on? And how do you deal with outliers? Like when someone builds $1 million house in a neighborhood where most of the houses are valued, say, $500,000, how does that affect the value in that neighborhood? And I think I'll leave it at that. You answered most of my other questions that I had written down, so.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
For the answer to the first question, ask how do you come up with the land portion of a land and building sale? It's called the land residual method. In Maine, yes, we are obligated to attribute a certain amount of your estate to land, a certain amount to buildings, and it's mostly very factually driven. Buildings are very more straightforward, square footage, amenities, bathroom count, bedroom count, fireplace, no fireplace, things like that, adjusted by the quality of the construction and the current condition that the building's in. And the land, when we assess land, The only real thing that changes is the house lot value. Whatever we determine that first acre or first half acre or on the water, the first 100 feet, 200 feet, that'll be our base lot value. And that will, the one variable you will see, you know, good neighborhoods, off water, average neighborhoods, good neighborhoods, things like that. That's the only vehicle we use to show location differences. And the way we get about this is repetitive work in the sense that we're going to take, just very generically, we'll take 100 off-water sales. And we've determined that they're all just average rural house lots, nothing special, no views, no access, anything like that. And you start analyzing those sales with a building cost schedule that you think is going to work. And then you start, all right, this sold for $500,000. I can attribute $350,000 to the building because of what I mentioned earlier. That gives you a residual value for the land of $150,000. And then you look at it. Okay, it's on this road. It's got this many acres. Does it have any amenities at all? View, whatever. You start doing that over and over again. And you start to see a common thread in that base value that changes depending on your location. And it's just, it comes from the numbers, but it's something that from our experience, we start coming up with. So we'll come up with a base lot value for rural residential. And we know it works because I can take a $150,000 sale and an $850,000 sale. Size of the lot's going to be different. The size of the buildings can obviously will be different. But when I applied that methodology that I'm speaking of, at the end of the day, my assessment's rate on the $150,000 sale and my assessment's rate on the $850,000 sale. If my building schedule's too high, you'll see skews in your residuals that you start working out. You basically keep massaging those sales over and over and over again until you come up with a formula that works. Once you use it, you go to an area of town that doesn't have any sales, we make a determination as an assessor. Is this area without sales, is it average? Is it above average, below average? And then we say, all right, over here, we think it's the same type of neighborhood and we use X amount of dollars for the land. We're going to apply that same methodology here. And that kind of spills into the next question about the waterfront. Not every piece of waterfront is going to have the same value. The methodology has to be the same, but that starting value will be dependent on what body of water they're on. And even sometimes, especially on Cobby, there's parts of that lake that are less desirable because of the depth of the water, the quality of the water. And we'll have sales in those types, that part of the lake that will show a difference in value for that lake. We just don't pick a number and just run it all the way across. We have to consider all legal valid influences on that value. And the water quality has a lot to do with it. I know there'll be enough sales on each body of water that I won't have to say, I'm going to take a Cobbles Conti sale and come up with a factor downward for Annabescook. I'm going to have plenty of sales on Annabescook to do that. And they will have their own sales study and values determined from sales from just that lake. That's how we, ultimately, I know we'll have plenty of sales because I've been following them for the last handful of years. Then the last thing you talked about is outliers. We look at that as obsolescence. You can have an area of $500,000 homes and somebody puts $1 million home in the middle of it. We have to determine, is it overbuilt for the area? Is it overbuilt for the location? Then we consider an obsolescence factor on that value for that reason. Because, we're trying to hit market value, even though we're taking it's a very number specific approach to it. How big, how many, how much is what we go by all the time. But at the end of the day, we have to use our judgment in determining that. Anything that would be obsolete like that is very few and far between. We probably can pick out a half a dozen. But when my building and land schedules are proper, like I said, I can take that $850,000 sale and that $150,000 sale, and my methodology is correct on both of them. So if you have $1 million house in a $500,000 neighborhood and it sells for $1 million, we can attribute all that extra value to that large, high quality home. Because the base value for a small home or a large home is the same number, it's not going to affect the purchase price of a $500,000 home just because you had a very big sale of a very large building on that same street. Does that make sense?
I want to clarify it. So if
All
you,
right, don't matter.
because it can go the other way too, right?
Yep.
So if you had a house that undersold in a neighborhood that was multi-million-dollar homes, you're not going to judge that home based on that sales price in relation to the other sales. You're going to judge it based on basically the equation, that dynamic equation you guys are putting together based on everything. Yeah. Okay.
If you take all the rural, for example, all the residential rural, and 95 sales are leading me to this certain cost per square foot and land value methodology, and 5% aren't. We consider all of them, but we're going to use the majority to use that number.
Yeah, you're basically building factors and then putting it. Yeah, so you guys don't use other towns, like you're not like Cobussy. You're not going to use Gardner and Manchester at all. Will you?
We won't have to. Well,
yeah.
We won't have to. We're revaluing Manchester at the same time this year.
Okay.
So we'll have most of the lake. I suspect the values to be the same for both, but only if you have a very small sample size or something that you would want to go to another town. I've never had to do it, and I know I wanted to do it here.
Yeah. No, perfect. Thank you.
Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one or two very quick questions. How do you take into account in your models environmentally restricted lots, such as being in the public water supply, resource protection, those kinds of things? A person can have a significant piece of lakefront with a very limited utility due to zoning rules.
Right. We have to consider what that impact would be if we didn't have a sale of a property that had those criteria in the sale. I would go back to what I've seen in other towns to use that. Resource protection, if there's a building grandfathered within that resource protection area, that value of that building will be like anything else.
Right.
But it'd be the area of the land all the way around it that's very restrictive, where there's nothing that can be done. We'd have a reduction on that land for sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm old. I forgot the other question. Just let's move on.
Dave, do you think you got everything answered, or you want to come back to the podium? Absolutely. Well, please come on up. And I got a couple of questions. Well, no, you still can't hear it online. I'm sorry. So it's easier if you talk in the microphone because the folks online.
Just one follow-up to the land question. So how do you treat a house lot that's a half an acre as opposed to a house lot that could be right next door that's 3/4 of an acre? Is a lot, or do you determine a square footage price, or how does that work?
We use acreage when we determine, part of that question is, if you're in an area of town that the average lot size is an acre, and so we'll say the first acre will have a value to it. When you get a half acre in that acre area, we'll have sales of that to determine what factor to use, but we default to a methodology that we've used forever. Typically, if you're in an area of town that you have acre house lots, a half acre house lot is worth about 70% of a full acre. It's always, that's that factor we've always built. It's built right into the system right now. We can change it if we have to, or we default to that, because there's a lot of commonality there. If you have a half acre or full acre, you're in the same neighborhood, you get the same amenities, same location. It'll command almost the same amount of money. But because we're dealing with everything that's very factually driven, we do show a small difference. A 3/4 acre lot and a full acre lot would get 87% of the full acre price. So it gets closer that way. That's how we take care of that, because they will sell, and they'll sell for very similar values.
Right. Well, I wrote down a couple of questions. I think you answered some of them, but they're pretty quick. So you did say when you are going out and you can't find similar comps in the town, you will use other towns to help you come up with an evaluation.
If we need to.
Okay. But you really don't see that as
Not here.
okay. And then, thank you for coming in, Dave. Just talking about the waterfront, because being on waterfront property, as you know, and it sounds like you've been doing this a long time, so you understand that there's probably different qualities, lake qualities, as you mentioned. There's access, depths, in just the view and everything else. Do you play all that into your factor? Okay.
I do. Yeah, when you have even a steep lot.
Yeah, well, I mean,
have an effect on the value, and they're always a case where we'll have a lot with a topography challenge on it that will sell.
Yeah,
And that kind of gives us a guidance as to what we expect to see the value loss to be.
You know, I know somebody, if they've got like 3 feet going out 100 feet, so it's really kind of tough
Yeah.
to call that
Yeah.
too much waterfront, but it is.
And they all start at the same number and then we
Sure.
appreciate it down to what. an
Okay,
area.
so that's how that's that equation. Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I guess Aaron's got one more.
Yeah, it just kind of brought something to mind. So when you're talking about selling, like, saying that lot will sell, in the last, I don't know, 2 years, I've seen lots sell and then challenges for people trying to develop the lot. And, and when I've talked to them, they said, well, I came from Massachusetts, New Jersey, I think it was 2 cases. And they thought, that they would be able to develop that lot. So they bought it,
Yeah.
almost like sight unseen. And I know there's been a lot of that. Do you factor any of that into when you see that properties have been bought, but then not really developed? Or do you have a correction for that?
We have 2 different values on our land. Again, I keep going back. The base lot, the first acre, the first half acre, that's where the bulk of the value is. And we have a base lot that's vacant and we have a house lot that's developed. Again, the land residual method we talked about before, the $500,000 sale, the $150,000 building value, that $150,000 residual is for that many acres on that street developed. Well, septic, lawn, driveway power, everything that's there. Especially when you're developing a raw piece of land, value and cost a lot of times don't have any connection to each other. Let's just say that our developed lots are going to be 100,000. But vacant, you could probably buy that same lot for 50,000. But when these land and building sales happen over and over, you start to do that trend, you see that $100,000 number come up time and time again, and that becomes an indication of what a developed lot's worth. Doesn't mean that you can have 2 lots side by side, they both pay 50 for the land. One decides to go in 75 feet off the road and have easy well, easy septic, and maybe that cost them 25 grand to do it. And the guy next door, for whatever reason, he's got to spend $75,000 to develop his lot. At the end of the day, they're going to be whatever developed lot has been determined from the sales. That's how we acknowledge that. If somebody buys a piece of land, think they can build on it, and then they can't get a building permit, that's a different animal, and case by case basis, we look at that. That's a significant value loss.
Something.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. Just want to thank you for coming in. You're obviously very knowledgeable on it. And, showing the mythology is, I think, the most important part because there's so many things that are unknown right now. So thank you again, and I appreciate it.
So I had one question, if I may.
Yep, please.
So, Rob, you were talking about the state valuations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't the state valuations actually lag the market by 2 years as well? Okay. So even though we're 60% behind the state valuations are 2 years behind the market.
So speaking towards that, Rob, and I know I've asked this of Anthony, and I know it's a question that's been asked to me in the public. The only punishment we have now by not reevaluating or leaving it as it is the home exemption.
Right. Well, all the year, right?
Everybody's home exemption.
And veterans exemption.
And veterans exemption. So with that, if we did do nothing, and we're just taking, then most people will be just taking the loss of the value of that reduction in their current value today versus having an increased value tomorrow.
I think there's one other thing.
Yes, go ahead.
You still have inequality
Okay.
between what taxpayers should be paying based upon the value of their property, because the 2008 values no longer reflect what today's market
People
is.
have asked me, and I wanted to throw it out there. The other piece of it, I really think it was important for everybody to hear, to understand as well. And believe me, I've wrestled this gorilla in my head quite a bit. So I appreciate you coming in and having discussion. I want everybody to know, and I go on public record, is we've done a heck of a job of trying to keep our tax base at a certain rate. here in town, so we know where we're at with things. So hopefully, when we do the reevaluation, we can dip that mill rate down to a point where it's hopefully not too wonky for most folks when they step up and see their valuation and what they may have to pay. So,
And I sent this email out to the council on Friday as well. But when we look at the tax levy that we're looking at for FY '27 of that total amount, which is like $14.8 million, the town actually gets and uses 27% of that.
yes, saw that.
And the rest of it, 64% is for the schools and 8% for the county. And so,
Well, that's also why we've been very vocal to our partners in
The school department.
the county.
understood, but because I'm the town manager, I'm going to focus on the town, which is that when you consider, in my opinion, the number of services, the quality of the service, and the level of services, you know, we could do away with this whole operation today and people would only realize a 27% decrease in their tax bill,
Right.
but they'd have no fire department or police department or ambulance service or someone plowing the roads or someone registering their cars. And so I think we offer or no library. And so I think we offer a really good value when you take that into consideration and put it up against the percentage of your tax bill that you're actually, that the town is actually receiving to support services.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
Just one more thing I want to add. When you talk about your ratio being below the minimum standard, the state will withhold revenue from them for being
Okay.
below.
That's the other thing,
Right.
piece I was looking for. So thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know it's a lot of times, I mean, I think everybody knows it. When COVID hit, everybody seemed to scramble up into this neck of the woods and get laid down all kinds of money on homes that we're like, I can't believe you're spending that much money on a homes that's like beside my house. It's like, I don't see that value, but it seemed like you inflated it quite a bit, but it hasn't come down much. So I don't know what's happening in the world, but.
And the idea is waiting as long as we did is actually a good thing. We talked about this a couple of years ago when we started chatting about this. You know, now it's been, the COVID influences is still there slightly, and we can see that it's holding it. It's here to stay. We don't see any real big dipping like we did after the 2008 crash. But the idea is going forward, two different things. One, if the market continues to go up, and now we have a new benchmark that's today, we can talk about having periodic small changes.
Adjustments.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, every couple, 3 years, if the market gets to a point, well, maybe we could certify 100 and keep that homestead up there every year.
Linda, microphone though, sorry.
If we choose to not use the 100% value, we can always use a slightly lower.
You can, but it really doesn't serve much purpose, because if I was instructed to be at 80% of market value, I need to go to 100 first and then relax it down 20%. And what you see for any burden shift that would happen would be everybody's individual change from the 2008 value to the 2027 value, even at 100 or at 80. Everybody would have a different starting point. They would have a different percentage of increase. And they'd see a constant drop of 20%. And all that would mean the burden wouldn't change, the homestead would go down, and you only have 10% before you need to do something over again. So it's a very common question, but people don't really think about the scattered values that we had now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'll say, in my time as town manager, the people who've either called or come into my office complaining about their taxes, inevitably, far and away, their biggest concern is they're not realizing the full value of their homestead exemption, by far.
Yeah, I got
But
somebody else wants to come
point,
up.
It's only really, and this is one of the points that the property tax task force people have been making, is it's only if you want to sell it.
Sure.
And most people want to keep their homes. So I get it, but and it's great to see your house is worth X amount of dollars, but people don't want to sell. They want to stay in their homes. So that's the difference,
Sure.
It's a big.
Yep. Understood. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Sandy Steele again. So coming from a person who was directly affected by the last reevaluation, doubled my property taxes, forced to sell. can't afford it anymore, had to leave the water. I was explained that we were done in a grid system. So is that not how this is being done this time? Because I fell in a grid with $1 million homes. And we
Yeah,
really.
San, can you please talk in the microphone so that
And
a
it
whole
really
audience can hear
affected
you?
us greatly. So that's my concern. Is there any chance any of that will change? Like, will you, in the process, decide to say, well, a grid might be a better method? One. Two, I do just want to say that we're talking about our valuations in 2008 and everything's skewed, but we also have to remember that from COVID, everything is skewed. The property values, people are not going to be able to sell most of these homes for what they paid for them. And that will happen. And when the property taxes go up, people aren't going to be able, they're going to be me like I was in 2007, and they're going to have to sell. So, you know, I just struggle with everyone talking about skewed figures because you're basing this whole reevaluation on sales from COVID, the majority of where those went. And I just feel like, I'm not sure, would you benefit in just losing part of that exemption for a few more years and taking that risk as opposed to coming in and not knowing that if your taxes are going to double or not, because it is life altering for some people. For me, it was, and for many people on Waterfront, it could be. And I wouldn't want to see what happened to me happen to anyone else. My fear is what I'm seeing here, it's going to happen to a lot of folks. And that's just not right. It's just not right. So it's just, I need to make sure that I'm comfortable that when you say you're going to do it one way and each place is going to be individual, that I hope that you stick to that, because for those of us that fell in those grids, it was not a good moment. It wasn't good for the town either. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And that's the point I've been making all along, is what you're looking at, you know, is values that for whatever reason, these people are coming in with second homes. These are second homes for people. These aren't even, some of these folks are coming in with millions of dollars. They're just buying up whatever. So it really, yes, you can sell your property for more, but I guess at what level does that, do you know what I'm saying, that does that, I mean, it's not realistic. I mean, although you can sell your property for that, and, you know, to Sandy's point is, this is a market that's unlike anything else we've seen. And that is the difference between people going up from, you know, a few thousand here and there to really just, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, people are just coming in with cash and they're just buying stuff. And so that's my concern, is with people that they're going to be priced out of the market and they're not going to be able to afford to live in their homes. And that's what, you know, the state is appointed the task force. I'm sure you know about it. And they're looking at all that because they're very concerned about people that have stayed in Maine here or that live in Maine and are not going to be able to afford their homes because these people are coming in. So, you know, I think it's an issue. It's not something that we're going to solve here tonight or whatever, but it's just, it is an issue for people that, you know, I mean, it's a market that we haven't seen before.
If we talked earlier about having multitude of sales and a couple properties that have sold really low and that didn't fit the mold, and we have so many other indications of a different value. Same way, well, I've seen this many times. Somebody comes in and you look at what they pay for a piece of property and you can't make any sense of that. Well, we have properties that sell lower than we expect. We'll have properties that sell higher than expected. If we have the people that come in that money's not an object and they're buying it because they want to buy it, when we do our study, that residual value that we put on the land won't match anything else. We will throw a high sale out as much as we throw a low sale out.
I really, I don't know if anybody else got anything else here, but Rob, I do appreciate coming in because you know, it's a tough job and I'm sure you get scrutinized quite a bit. I get it. But, you know, coming up here and putting yourself in front of everybody and answer some questions, it's important. It's an important topic to all the public. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Feel like we need a break, but anyway, here we go on. Moving on to items 103, discussion of the fiscal year 2026, 2027 capital improvement program, the CIP.
Okay. So then there were two options.
Yes. Hey, so Anthony, I know before we really kind of get jumping into this, and I read what you had on, I apologize, I just hadn't had a chance to get to you, but on that, options 1 and 2, on the thing you sold, so it showed us, and if you could help me, and I hate to start off as the chair of asking a question, but you showed mill rate possibilities. Both of them have the same mill rate possibilities at 3.5%.
Well, what we said was, I think Nick and I are comfortable with, we don't know what the mill rate's going to be.
Okay.
But I think we're comfortable in saying the mill rate will increase no more than 3.5%.
Okay, so that's what that,
Yeah.
okay, I thought that was it's like the proposal. I was like,
No.
geez.
And then, so I think the important thing, Jim, is when you look at, so we put these big sheets.
Yes, okay,
And so when you look at option 1,
yep,
you can tell it's option 1 because down here in the bottom, the difference in the tax levy, and so we're all talking the same language. The levy is the amount of total taxes collected.
yep,
Option 1 would increase the levy by 3.39%.
okay,
That's with everything.
That's with everything. Yes, school, county, everything.
Okay.
CIP, everything.
great,
Option 2, the difference would be 2.84%.
okay,
So essentially, you're talking about a half of a percentage point
okay,
difference between those two plans.
yep,
And the reason that we're recommending option 1 is just as we talked about the last time, that if we want to start moving forward and incorporating more of our paving cost, for instance, into the annual mill rate, this at least, option 1 at least represents a 20% advancement toward that goal. Option 2 only represents a 5% advancement.
Just said, isn't that, if it's in the capital improvement, the paving and the capital improvement plan,
Mhm.
doesn't that also fall in the mill rate, the annual mill rate?
No, most of this capital improvement plan is funded through the use of budget surpluses that have been appropriated to capital reserves.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
those aren't calculated.
so,
Those aren't calculated in the mill rate.
yeah, so,
I get it.
yes,
I
exactly.
see what you're saying.
And so if you have the reserves or the surpluses, that's a great way of using those monies, Roy. But what if we run into a year where we don't have it and then we've got to jack up the mill rate in order to accomplish the paving program?
Did you by any chance calculate what percentage of costs are being covered by the surplus? Or Nick, is that something?
Well, it's under these scenarios for the capital improvement plan, option 1, it's everything but, so it's essentially $2 million. It's everything but $103,000. So $103,000 would come from taxes. The other 1.1 million would come from budget surpluses and capital reserves. And so under option 2, then it's everything except for essentially $25,000.
Last person.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think because we're all sensitive to what the impact of the revaluation is going to be next year, we're all committed not to putting more than $103,000 in the mill rate to address capital needs next year, let that ride for a year, and then start advancing from that point forward. So I think option 1 gets us further along towards that ultimate goal. Like if we only did 5%, we still got a long ways to go to reach that eventually. And I also did the calculation. And this is just using this year's budget, exemption, mill rate with these numbers applied. The difference between option 1 and option 2 for the average valued home, which was $341,000, was $40 a year. $3 a month. So for that sort of little amount of savings to an individual taxpayer, I think, as I sort of encouraged you last time, I think option 1 takes a longer view of what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm afraid that option 2 is perhaps a little short-sighted. No, we talked about two options last time.
We did. We dropped it down. The direction was to have them just narrow it down to these two because the third one was not a one we really want to consider. So
Yeah. And I'll add, tomorrow I'm going to, well, I was going to mention this during the town manager's report, but we're now 11 months into the fiscal year. So that's essentially 92% of the fiscal year is over with. As of the end of May, our expenses were at 88% versus 92% of the budget. And our revenues were at 101%. So we're going to have budget surpluses next year that we can then, as you'll recall, Nick and I are recommending just set that money aside and we'll deal with that next year as part of our capital improvement plan in FY28. So I think that we're going to be in a good position just to sort of let this ride next year.
Roy, go ahead.
Just take a step back to that $40 a year figure. Tell me again what that was.
So that's the difference between.
Difference between the two. That's not total increase.
That's right. It's the difference between the two.
So what would
Option one look like
overall look like at the 3-point-something percent?
3.39.
I did that calculation in order to reach the other calculation. I did not save that number because I was looking at what the delta was between those two options. So.
Oh, it'd be 7 times 7, right? Ish.
7 times 7, I'm not following.
Oh, it'd be times 7. If that's 0.5%, and we're looking at 3.5, it would be that $40 times 7, right? Or times.
You evaluated that the $40 is going to be 0.5% of an increase. You can then take that and
3.5% would be 40 times 7.
You're better doing math in your head than I am.
Nick, is that track?
Not really, because I can't tell you what the number is.
I think that's accurate.
So that means the average home is going to go up, 4 times?
Because your total amount, what he's saying is
$180.
your total amount was here and the difference.
I see what you're saying. I
Yeah.
just can't do the calculation that quickly in my head.
$180.
Yes.
I'd have to
The year.
do it on paper.
Yeah.
Well, but of that, and again, I'm going to put. Well, we do. I mean, we've budgeted for revenue and we've budgeted more aggressively for revenue. But again, if that number is right, 280 or so, just remember like 27% of that is related to town operations versus the rest. And so I tend to focus on the things that we can control, and that's the 27% we can control.
Any other questions?
So what we're here tonight, we're not asking for like a vote or a decision, but we do need direction because at the next meeting in 2 weeks, we're going to ask you to vote on the budget and we need to plug one of these two figures into the budget. So we just need direction.
What's everybody's, you get the consensus, everybody's thoughts on this, or I've reviewed it and gone backwards and forwards over the whole thing, but
I'll just say, I think.
yeah, go ahead.
I think
Start it off.
I think number one represents the way to flatten the curve as much as possible going over the next 4 years, looking at the fact that in 2027 we'll be getting graduation, but we do need to realize some expenses in the actual tax levy versus relying on revenue. Because as we move every year, we can then kind of make that adjustment, I think, and tweak it. And these numbers are where we wanted to be, as far as I'm concerned. That's where I'm at right
As
now.
far as the towns goes, right? Yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Oh, I understand what you're saying about the whole $100,000 and putting it toward the paving. And I guess I'm on board with that, providing the fact that it's the $100,000 is going to go toward paving next year and not toward the general budget. We're going to need another new beginnings of $100,000 toward pavings.
No, I think you have our commitment that that 100,000 in the mill rate will support the paving project. So when we build this capital improvement plan next year, there'll be $103,000 in it for paving
And that would show.
from taxes.
Shannon, anything? No thoughts?
We direction of option. Just because, like, well, something that we do need to get done. I did have some other residents speak to me as far as, you know, putting the money into where we need it. So option one would be my choice.
All right. Linda?
I can go with option one.
Okay. Zach?
Still struggling. I want to keep it low. I like 2 right now personally. I'm thinking no, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of more on
Well, she's thinking,
well, I don't even I'd like to see us go to 0, but I just, yeah, right. So, but yeah, obviously that's not a factor. And my whole basis is that there's so many unknowns right now, and I just don't want to hit people. I don't know what the impact, I can't do the math Roy was doing, so I don't know what the impact is, but I know the impact on 2 is less, right? And so that's where my head's at right now, and I'm obviously rambling here, so.
yeah, I guess, I mean, I'll speak and just kind of throw it back out around at you guys, just so I can have kind of my say in this whole thing. I wrestle with it too, I guess, a little like-minded in this act, but I struggle with it just because of the reevaluation, and I'm happy to have it, and I'm happy everybody come up and state their piece and ask their questions and talk about it. I struggle with having any type of increase as we drift into next year with that. So as flat as we can be, and I think I've always said this even when we weren't coming into reevaluation, trying to keep the budget as flat as we can, but also keep the services we have. And I realize we do have things we need to pay for. Sometimes I sit here, right or wrong, put myself as running or looking at this budget as I would my household budget. So sometimes I look at it as if I can't afford that nice new shiny piece today, I save for it, and I have to save for it for maybe another couple extra years to get to that, to have that nice new shiny piece on my property or that I own. So I don't know what's right or wrong or what's different on this. I know it's not, we're not talking big dollars. I think we've done, as a council, we've done a good job of keeping the budget, and you guys have done a great job, your directors and Anthony as a town manager, of making sure that we are staying level and making sure what we bring in is not, not overspending. So having a surplus is always very nice every year to have those dollars to put towards something that is unanticipated. But I sometimes lean of like, I want to give back to the town to make sure that the taxpayers, because I want to make sure that they don't feel this impact and they see that we're really, really working for them. But I am still kind of, and I will go with the consensus here at this table, but I was leaning more towards options 2 when I read this whole proposal. And I was leaning towards that before we had to narrow it down. So, and I appreciate, you and Nick looking at it and beating on it and doing it as we asked. So I'll leave that with you folks, and we can kind of keep talking that mic.
I could go with option 2 as well. I mean, I am very concerned about, I'm not voting for the school budget anyway, so they're too damn high. So as far as I'm concerned, that budget I'm not even voting for at all, and hope it goes down at the polls, because to me, I think a 5% increase is just too high. And when we're looking at a reval, I think this council needs to send a message to some of these folks that we're going to be faced with a huge, potential tax bill next year, when a lot of folks, and we can't have the increases. So I understand what Anthony's trying to do to even this out, because we are, it is a concern. So I'm just going to mull over this, I think.
Well, again, we need some direction because we got to have a vote next
Right.
time.
I think so.
And let me just make one other argument, if I may. Okay, so the delta that we're talking about is like $78,000, right? out of a $14.8 million tax levy.
I know.
Yeah, and I get that, but I kind of am with Linda on the precedent here. If we decide to be smart right now and save our money here, and we know we're going to keep it under 3% this year, next year we can kind of tote that line again. That's, and I get your point, Anthony, and I understand what the end game is, but I just not understanding and having the assessor not even understand what the true value of the things is going to be. If we don't spend smart now, then we can't make up for it later. That's where my head's at. So.
Well, we'll go ahead, Roy, get something to add?
As I'm sitting here thinking about it, we talked about the $280 increase. Some quick math tells me in 10 years, if we had that increase every year, the taxes would be going up $2,800 on an average home.
Well, I think that's a little bit of a dangerous game to play. I can't imagine that the increase is going to be that much every year over year. It wasn't this year.
Wasn't this year.
Okay, thank you.
Go back over the last 10.
I've only been the town manager for 3.
Understand that.
So without trying to beat this horse is pretty well whipped right now, but let's just kind of get around and to figure out, so we can give Anthony some direction. We can move on to the next item, but
Where's it? I guess that's.
yeah, where's
Maybe
everybody's
we should
consent?
Instead of beating the horse, we said kick a sleeping dog. see if we
I
get bit.
know, yeah. But
I think we're ready to.
yeah, let's just kick it one more time.
I'd be more in favor of 2 than I
Okay,
am 1.
Roy?
One.
Okay,
1.
1.
I'm sitting at 2. 1, 2. Okay, so there you got it. You've got a kind of a split council, but you've got the favor of 1.
Understood. But I will say, I hope the vote for the budget is in 4-3. That's not a good one.
Make it interesting, right?
Who needs that, Jim?
All right, thank you, guys.
Nobody needs it, and I know at least one person who doesn't want it.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with you, Anthony. So, but thank you for everyone again working on it. I know it's not an easy task. It's not easy to sit up here and hash it over and try to ask you guys to keep doing more, giving up more. But all right, so let's talk about, maybe this will help, right? Let's talk about.
This does actually.
Let's talk about items 97, and I think that's where I'm at, is the consideration of resolution 2026-7, reappropriating $78,986.48 from the LED lights capital reserves tabled from May 18th, 2026 meeting.
Yeah, and so the numbers that we just talked about included this nearly $79,000. So we need to appropriate that to some capital reserve, and we've laid out 2 options here. But there's also a twist in that today we received a $17,000 check from Affinity LED. That's the efficiency main rebate for the LED lighting. So the new figure for this in the LED fund is $96,036.03. So let's say that you wanted to appropriate all of that towards the police vehicle capital reserve, then that would more than pay for the new unit that we're going to buy this year. And then we've already got some money in the bank for the next time that we have to replace a cruiser. And the same would go with the loader. You're just going to make more headway towards the eventual purchase price of a loader.
So just going to jump in real quick, and you guys can have this discussion real quick, but I think what I'd like to do with this, because we've been on the meeting a couple times, is just put this into the fund, and then we decide where we put it later.
Well, so yeah, we have to appropriate at least that much to one of these things as part of the CIP.
We have to, or can it just go into the general fund and then we can spend it there for us?
Well, the package that we just outlined includes the $79,000 in order to reduce the amount of taxation.
Okay.
So what we could do though is if you want to put the $17,000 into the general fund, we could do that.
Okay.
I was thinking about like 85,000 to option 1 and the difference into option 2, but.
And we could do that as well.
I'd like to make a motion that,
Get Zach.
Yeah, I
need
got
to
a
go
question.
through something.
What does this do for that quote for the library? I know we haven't approved the quote for the library at 23, but we had talked about using this money for that at one point in time.
So, update, Mr. Longfellow's wife is in labor, so that's why he's not here. So
Okay.
valid excuse.
It's a good excuse, yeah.
So, yes, so I think, and we wanted Mr. Longfellow here to answer your questions about that project because there's been a lot of interest. But and the price is half of what we initially projected it to be. So for that amount of money, and because we know we're going to have surpluses at the end of the year, what I was prepared to recommend to you was that we just simply use the undesignated fund in order to affect that project.
Okay.
And then, so Richard will want me to mention this as well. So we also have another capital item at the library, and that is the book drop, the metal book drop. So that is at the end of its lifespan, like it's no longer, the doors on it are no longer working, and he's replaced hinges a couple of times and locks and so forth. So the lifespan of one of those is about 10 years. The cost is about $10,000. We have a 100-year solution to that problem that's going to cost about $15,000. And that is, Richard has worked with the architect to come up with the design to have a book drop where you drop your book into the side of the building and it ends up in the building as opposed to an outside receptacle. And so I think that could also potentially be a good candidate to do that project and use the undesignated fund for that as well.
Okay. And so we just talked about putting the money, the excess, right? This 96 to 78 difference into that fund, right? That was, okay.
Into the general fund, yeah.
Which I'd be in favor with. That would make sense for me for the library.
Just be completely off subject, but what the heck? Norcross Point has been probably almost neglected for the past 3-4 years. I'm not singling out anyone for this, but you need to remember that every inch of land that we lose to erosion, we cannot put back. The riprap around the point itself is failing miserably. And we've all heard Lonnie tell us about the boardwalk down there and the erosion down there. And there's a few furniture issues, which it seems like we're going to get some help with. But we need to look at that, okay? It's almost getting to the point where someone from out of town comes down there and looks around and it's almost shameful.
Linda, did you want to say? I would want to say one thing too. We talked about the library improvement, and I think I mentioned at the last meeting, and this is, I like the whole book drop thing, but I'm more inclined to doing something one or the other this year, not both.
Okay.
So I mean, that's my take, because I think right now, personally, I think we're spending quite a few dollars here and there. But I think, again, as I said, I thought we've mitigated the water right now, and I still would like to talk to Mr. Longfellow, maybe after, hopefully it's not 18 years after the kid turns 18, but I think he probably can make it in a few months. But we can look at that. But I think that book drop sounds like it's a very well worth project. If you're talking like 100-year project, I remember dropping the books in the door when I was a wee tyke way back when, not into a metal box, but.
Well, we are definitely going to have to do that because otherwise there won't be a way for people to return their books.
Agreed.
Unless the library is open.
And I just think that's more of a worthy project for now for dollars for me, and spending that kind of money on one project. Yes.
And I would add to that, Jim, I think one of the potential dangers is that maybe Mr. Longfellow won't honor that $22,000
maybe, but
bid.
I got a pretty good
this time next year.
Public Works director. He can work a lot of magic.
Kevin's willing to come up with it. I just wanted to mention with the book drop that we can't go into winter with it the way it is now. So
Sure.
We'll have to spend some money, which I hate to do. Last winter we spent about $1,500 getting it working. We spent another $1,500. Now we're at $3,000.
Yeah.
So it just kind of seemed like.
No, like I said, I think it's sounds like a worthy expense to probably could get to.
And then I just wanted to point out too that in the 16 years I've been here, if we did both projects, that's still about half of what I've ever had for CIP. So.
I know there were some questions at the last meeting about what we may or may not be able to do over there. And I did talk with the contractor.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, for what he's charging us and for what it would cost us, because you're on his insurance and all this stuff.
Sure.
I don't know if it's worth it to pull our crew off of what we'd be doing
Okay.
to get in there to do something minor to save $1,500
Okay, that's fair.
or something like
I
that.
appreciate you coming up and saying that. Thank you, Kevin.
Just shifting gears, because I know I had brought this up the last meeting and it would obviously be a time sensitive issue. Do you have a solution for Bowden Street in Fourth of July,
As far as,
making it safe?
I can actually answer that because I had a meeting today with the water utility superintendent. They're about to let the bid, and they anticipate that the project will be completed between July and September. Now that's their portion of it. And then we'll have to see if our paving contractor will be able to get
Right,
the
but I mean,
paving
if we're
done.
gonna have like, thousands of people out on Bowden Street walking on the 4th of July, 3rd of July, sorry. Do you need money now to do something? Is there something we can do to make that surface more safe?
as far as what, paving it?
Whatever you would come up with.
Well, let me look at when they open the bids and see what the time frame is and what they're going to be doing. Maybe we can do it in sections. I'm not in favor of paving sections because that'll just make it messy.
Right.
Right? Every time you got to mobilize these guys, it costs you more money.
Yeah, and the joints may not always
No,
connect.
I know, I just don't think it's gonna be a good idea to have thousands of people on that surface.
I get it. I get it.
Someone,
Okay. So I kick it back to Linda. So she wants to bring a motion.
To make a motion that we approve resolution 2026-7 reappropriating $78,986.48 from the LED lights capital reserve. And then I would also like to put in the $17,049.55 to general fund.
Second.
does that achieve everything you need?
Yes, except that which of the capital reserve accounts do we want the 79 to go into? Do we want it to be in
That was
the,
my question.
in
We
the,
need,
in the,
when does he need the cruiser? Like, that's gonna be a
well,
more
that is,
immediate.
that, yeah, we're going to be purchasing that in FY '27.
So what does that mean?
So I need to move that into that capital reserve.
Into the police vehicle capital reserve.
Okay, so moved.
Second, yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor? All are in favor. Thank you, everybody. Yes.
So I have a work thing. If you guys would be okay, yeah, for me leaving early here right now, okay, I'd like to dismiss myself. So I think I got through the important stuff, and I appreciate you guys.
Great, thank you.
See you later.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. All right, so I guess I'm going to just quickly go back. I guess we're just going to, we'll put on hold the item 101 just for some basically clean up here, Anthony, for that we were talking about. Do you
Yeah,
want to,
so
want to just put that?
Mr. Longfellow had said if he couldn't make it tonight, he'd be here on the 15th. So
Okay.
we'll see if he can.
So- Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second,
Okay. All in favor? All are in favor. Thank you. Andy, besides Andy's not here, but that's. Okay, thank you. I just wanted, as far as a little housekeeping there. So let's keep moving on. Item 104, consideration of order 2026-7, rescinding and replacing order 2026-6 to change the main peers retirement plan.
Yeah, and
I was gonna say, got it right this time?
we hope.
Go ahead.
I'll move to approve order 2026-07 to rescind and replace the main PERS retirement plan as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All are present are in favor. Moving on to items 105, discussion and consideration of the Maine Department of Transportation over limit agreement related to the ADA curb ramp improvements.
You guys have questions about this? Do you need me to explain?
Did they answer all your questions to your satisfaction?
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a formality, Roy.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And in fact, they said that
Where is this?
it's along Main Street is to do the ADA curb cut improvements along Main Street. And the fellow I talked to at DOT said they've never needed to move heavy equipment that this agreement would cover for a curb improvement, but doing this agreement is required by the DOT.
Isn't it their road? I'm so confused.
They have not yet bid the project. So they don't know what the contractor schedule is going to
I
be.
realize Main Street's their road, right?
It is their road, but this agreement is to allow them to ostensibly move heavy equipment over our roads in order to,
You decide to come down Highland Avenue?
if they were on a side street, for instance, so.
Okay, whatever.
Let's go ahead, Linda.
To approve the,
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All are in favor?
That's partially true.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So let's keep cruising. We're almost through here. Items 105, discussion and consideration of Maine Department of Transportation. Oh, we did that one. Sorry. I didn't get that checked off. I apologize. Back up. Item 106, consideration of the minutes of May 4th and May 18th, 2026 council meetings.
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
All in favor? All present are in favor? Items 107, consideration recommendations from the Appointments Committee.
There are none.
Okay, moving on. Other business. Do we have any public comment that likes to be made now? Great, come on up.
David Costa, taxpayer. I didn't want to bring this up during the discussion with the tax assessor, but on that topic.
Yep.
And the homestead exemption was thrown around and everything.
Sure.
Several candidates for governor have talked about raising that homestead exemption, and I would bring it to your attention and ask for you, if you get a chance to talk to any of them or our own local representatives, that maybe they could push that issue, and that transferring that to the state seems to be, at least in my opinion, is a broader tax, a little more income driven for people that,
Right.
an affordability thing.
No, the fixed income.
In fact, yeah, the property tax doesn't care how much money you make and whether or not you can afford the raise, you know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to bring.
Appreciate it. I hadn't heard that,
Okay.
Dave, so thank you for bringing that to my attention.
So Dave, I will let you know, your timing is impeccable because I'm meeting with Representative Tavis Hassenfuss tomorrow morning. And so I'll bring that up with him. And the MMA's Legislative Policy Committee supported and advocated all the bills that have come before it that would increase the homestead exemption. So the Maine Municipal Association agrees with you that it's been a long time since it's been increased, and it needs to be increased.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you, Anthony, for bringing that up. Anything online for public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move on. Town manager's report, please.
Okay, so I've got several things here, and I'll try to get through them as quickly as I can. Just an update on the downtown development plan. We contacted 4 different contractors about helping us update that plan so that we can then move forward with our TIF application. We've had 2 of those 4 have submitted formal bids. The other 2 said they couldn't really fit it into our schedule or couldn't work within the budget that we had sort of set for that. And so we're going to take those the 2 proposals to our downtown revitalization committee to make a recommendation to you on which of those 2 vendors we should hire.
Steve McDermott will come to that meeting. Did you and I?
Well, Steve is online, so
He is.
hopefully he will.
You're right. Great.
Let me unmute Steve and see if he wants to.
Steve,
Go
you're
ahead,
going to be able to attend that meeting?
Steve sometimes tunes into these meetings, but then he steps away to put his kids to
Yes,
bed.
I know he does. Well, that's okay. Roy's got something, so go ahead, Roy.
We talked about the downtown plan.
Mhm.
Is that what we talked about, that Dawn is capable and able to do it. She just doesn't have the bandwidth. Is that what?
That's right. I mean, when you look at the, well, there's two things at play here. So when you look at the moratorium ordinances, the ordinances that she's working on related to the moratoriums, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, and then all the new laws that were passed that have to be worked into our zoning ordinance, that's a lot of work before her. And we do have a funding source for this sort of work from the TIF fund.
Just,
So in other words, we're not going to be using general fund dollars for this. It's a special revenue fund that we're going to be tapping into for the cost of this work.
Good question. Anybody else? Anthony, I'll let you continue.
Okay, so just a reminder, Election Day will be a week from tomorrow, and because we're expecting heavy turnout, the clerk's office will be closed that day, but we'll make sure to publicize that to people. I just mentioned the moratoriums. So on July the 6th, we're going to ask you to extend those moratoriums. And in the case, I think I talked with, maybe I sent an email around about this, but I think maybe Jim responded to it about
Yes.
amending one of those
Yes.
moratoriums for the residential group living is Brandon Roberge, a local developer. And in fact, Brandon's online. I'm going to ask Brandon to unmute in case he wants to weigh in. But he has bought one of our former nursing homes. He's going to be closing on the sale at the end of this week. And he's proposing reestablishing that facility as a nursing home. But before he closes the sale, he'd like to sort of hear some consensus from you guys that you'd be supportive of amending the moratorium to allow that specific activity.
Yes.
I would, but I'm a little concerned with your terminology. You just used that residential group living.
That's right.
What, is that what a nursing home is considered? Or is that?
So we contacted the town attorney about that, and he said, yes, he thinks that that particular use would fall under the moratorium, which is why if you want to allow it, when we bring the moratorium extension back to you on July the 6th, you would need to amend it to allow
So
that specific.
But his concern is the language. So the attorney had said it was too broad. So I think
We can narrow
we
it
would
down.
narrow it.
Yeah, I would be I would be open to it being very specifically used as a nursing home facility.
Only.
Okay.
I would be interested in amending it as a nursing home facility only.
Yeah. And,
That's the only way I would be interested in amending it.
yeah,
My response to it was, and I'll get around this way, was yes, because I think we need more of those facilities in town. It was unfortunate that we lost two very close in time frame, but I just think it's important and we needed a great one. So I really appreciate him coming in.
Brandon has unmuted his mic. Brandon, do you want to weigh in on this?
I would just add to it. Yes, the idea is to use this as a senior living facility. I do think it falls under the classification of group home or group living, but it is a senior living facility.
We can
Nursing
use that
home.
language, senior living. We can probably use that language. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, I am generally not in favor of moratoriums. What I'm concerned about in this case, and it was something I worried about, the board worried about the whole time I served the ZBA, is setting a precedent. If we establish a moratorium and then make an exception to it, what happens next time we have a moratorium, someone asks for an exception? That
Consider it. Right?
Yeah. Take it case by case.
Take case by case, but a group home is very different than a senior living home. They're very different.
Yeah.
So in my opinion,
Very different use cases. So I'm very excited, the gentleman that has purchased it and looking towards making it back to what it was.
so you would perhaps think that a nursing home is more valuable than a home for persons with developmental disabilities? You just said a group home is very different than a nursing home.
Like the Goodwill home, I'm assuming.
I'm sure if something came up like that, then we would consider it.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think as of
Yeah.
right now.
I think it's a case by case.
It is aligned with our comprehensive plan. I think that that's something that would fit into our comprehensive plan and be recommended.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think the only reason that we're asking you is because Brandon has presented this opportunity to us.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank
So
you.
Brandon, have you got what you need?
I do. Thank you guys very much for your consideration. And I just would add that there'd be no additional burden on general assistance with this particular project. So I just wanted to
We
kind of.
need to use the property. We can't let it sit there and rot. So
Exactly. And this is the same purpose and use that it had previously.
Wonderful. Anthony?
I mentioned earlier that I had a meeting with the superintendent of the utility district. We were actually meeting about internal grease traps and if there's an opportunity to have an ordinance that would allow that mechanism, and he is agreeable to that, depending upon the size of the and nature of the operation. Like if you're running a hamburger grill, he's probably not going to approve that. But if you're doing a bakery, then he might. And so he's working on a proposal that will eventually be presented to you, and we've offered to provide any sort of resource or help that we can in order to affect that.
Great, thank you. Andy, you have something to say?
yeah, I can recall two cases that couldn't open a business because of the expense of external grease traps. And I know the Legion is having a problem right now because they've been denied an internal grease trap. And I'm very glad to hear that some progress might be made on that issue, Anthony.
Yeah, let's do. Tomorrow is the final day for our finance assistant, Linda Filer, who is retiring. So we're having a little luncheon for her at noon. If anyone you would like to attend, we'd be happy to have you. And so today was the first day for our new General Assistance Administrator, Taylor Correa, and she spent part of the day over in the Augusta General Assistance Office, starting to train. And then Jen will be sliding seamlessly into Linda's position. So
When is the food?
Say again?
When is the food tomorrow?
Noon here.
Okay, thank you.
I sent you guys an email, but we were in case anyone didn't see it, we did get the grant for the Community Action Grant for the Open Space Plan and for the energy audit. So the Conservation Commission is going to be working on the specs for the RFP, which are going to bring to you guys before we publish it for the Open Space Plan. Also related to the Community Resilience Partnership, I'm going to be attending their summit up at UMO next week on the 10th. And then also at our next meeting, we need to re-enroll in the program. And so we need to revisit both our self-evaluation that we did at one point and our priorities among the community actions. So we're going to have that discussion at the meeting on the 15th. And Steve McDermott has said he will be here for that.
Wonderful.
I mentioned about meeting tomorrow with Tavis. So Chief Moretto and I have some concerns that Maine EMS is not adequately supporting ambulance services the way that we believe that it should. So I spoke with a friend of mine who's a former Maine EMS director, and he was not surprised by our concerns and suggested that perhaps the best way to go about that would be to talk with our legislators and ask them to make contact with the Director of Public Safety and the governor's office to say, hey, this is what we're needing out of Maine EMS. So we're going to start that conversation tomorrow with Tavis. Craig Hickman, I don't think is going to be there. We've invited him, but we're hopefully going to get some movement on that. And then also at the same time, I told Tavis there's a new task force also dealing with data centers after the governor vetoed the statewide moratorium. So I just want to make sure that he understands sort of what our concerns are as it relates to data centers. And now without that moratorium, we're sort of out in the wind as far as if someone came here and presented us with an application, we don't have any guidance on properly regulating such a development. We are advertising for planning board members. So one of our members is moving to another community, and we have some alternate positions. And so we're looking for planning board members. The first farmers market is going to be happening on Thursday afternoon from 2 to 6 on Thursday in the municipal lot. So try to make it to the farmer's market. And that's it.
Roy, you want to, I know what you're going to talk about, but go ahead.
What's that?
I said, I figured I know what you're going to capitalize on, so go ahead.
Couple things. First of all, when you have Tavis here, can you talk to him about the county budget and about, we were going to try to get them to come in here, both Craig and Tavis, and speak with us when we were discussing the county budget.
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. And I think what I'll do is I'll see if he and Senator Hickman can at some point come and let's have a conversation as a group about that.
Be great.
Okay, and then the other thing is the open space plan. And I know that it's going to come to us, but my, I guess, guidelines to the conservation from me, I'm one of 7, is I would like to see, I will vote for the comprehensive plan, I mean, the open space plan, you know, identifying public owned properties in inventorying them. I will not support inventorying private property. As I spoke about before, I don't want my property inventoried. I know other people in town don't want their property inventoried. If it's public property, Kennebec Land Trust, all that stuff, great. We have open space plan and we got those properties listed. I do not want my property and others that I've spoken with inventoried.
I'm aware of your position.
Okay.
Thank you, Roy.
I just would like to have that whole.
I think you probably get the support, and I think the monies that we're getting, I'm just going to speak really quickly on it, is the money we're getting is what we have probably in town, and how we can develop it. Well, we're still probably going to fall short of what we'd like to do. So I think to your point, I'm in favor of what your proposal is. We kind of inventory what we already have and how can we better improve it. So anyway, Anthony, you were good with everything else.
Done.
Thank you, sir. All right. Yes, Andy, so we're going to move on. And Town council comment. Go ahead.
Fact, Anthony, and I could understand how you wouldn't be aware of this. There are 2 planning board members resigning. One will resign on July 31st. The other one was going to resign on July 31st, but made the decision to resign forthwith.
Can I say a point of order, Andy, real quick? May fall under personnel. Said a point of order that that type of information may fall under personnel, that we might have to wait. Okay.
So I just wanted to let you know, I discussed a little bit of this with Shannon. I'm not going to go into detail about anything. What we have.
We'll leave it right at that then.
Okay, but we have 5 planning board members left and no alternates. So all I'm asking is that we make an even bigger effort.
Okay.
Okay, to recruit.
Sure. We'll do
We
that.
could be in a lot of trouble real fast here.
Okay.
So we've put it out on Facebook, we boosted it, we've put it out through the website. And so as you folks know, the most effective way to get people to serve is to walk up to them and ask them. So I'm counting on the 7 of you to help us do that.
All right.
And I move we go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 4056A, personnel matters.
Second.
All in favor? All are in favor.
What time is it? 7:56.